Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Donald Trump's personal lawyer, currently embattled in the FBI probe, Michael Cohen, stands, and this is breaking, accused of taking $500,000 from a sanctioned Russian oligarch during Donald Trump's presidency. You did hear that right, and we will explain. This allegation comes from Michael Cohen's opponent, Michael Avenatti, who represents Stormy Daniels. And breaking right now, he has released information, 7 pages, which I'm going to walk through, in this tweet, where he talks about the allegation that Michael Cohen received $500,000 in the months after the 2016 election from a company controlled by a Russian oligarch who has been sanctioned by the United States and is linked to Putin. Now, I want to be very clear before I go any further, because this is a breaking allegation. NBC News has not yet been able to confirm this material. We don't have, for example, the underlying documents from the bank, and we don't have yet a full response from Mr. Cohen. I promise to bring it to you as soon as we get it. But I do know, and I can tell you, that the very oligarch mentioned here in this new material, a man named Victor Vekselberg, was not only sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury in April under the Trump administration, but he was also contacted by Mueller's investigators, who reportedly questioned him 2 months ago, according to the New York Times. They snagged him as he flew into a New York area airport. Now, Vekselberg has not been identified as a suspect in connection with the Mueller probe. For more analysis on this very unusual story and set of allegations, I want to turn to former Watergate Special Prosecutor Nick Ackerman, a former federal prosecutor Kenneth Wyatt, Caddy K, Washington correspondent for BBC World News America, and NBC national correspondent Heidi Prisbilla. My thanks to each of you. Nick, I want to start with you, and again, be very clear about what I'm holding. These are 7 pages of material that represent one side of the story, not both sides, not a complete account. Sometimes I hold up NBC reporting or New York Times reporting. This is not that. But what is in here, what is alleged, and this is breaking right now from Mr. Avenatti, who's familiar to our viewers, he was on this show recently, is one of the most serious claims you could make in connection with the entire Mueller probe, because it alleges a direct line of money from an oligarch linked to Putin to a very senior Trump aide, Michael Cohen, during the pendency of the Trump administration, after he became president, and with the implication that there might be federal laws broken, including the Bank Secrecy Act. Your analysis.
Well, I read this too, just the last few minutes. And I must say, I'm not surprised. I mean, I think what's been happening all along is that the White House has been trying to deflect attention with that search warrant, trying to say it related to Stormy Daniels and the payoff of other women. I've always thought that this related to the Russian investigation and the central allegations that Mueller is looking at. And if this is true, that proves it. Michael Cohen was involved in trying to set up a Trump Tower in Moscow for Trump. He was allegedly involved in going to Prague after Manafort left the campaign, trying to keep the relationship going between the Russians and the Trump campaign. I mean, all this does is add more support to those allegations. I mean, in fact, if you look at the Christopher Steele memo, There was more than one source that told them this. I believe it's been reported most recently that another source, a news source, has come out confirming it. And Michael Cohen hasn't really denied it.
It is Wednesday, the 9th of May of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest? Well, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Yes, it's good that we are having an egg dish with hollandaise sauce, because we're going to need a lot of sustenance to get through this day. Not only did we pull out of Iran. Oh my God. Maybe it's good that we did. No, it's not. Pulling out of the Iran deal, Trump just wants to stick it to the black guy. But then we find out, as reported by Ari Melber on The Beat, Avenatti has discovered in his discovery process that a Russian oligarch, AT&T and Novartis, have been paying bribes to Michael Cohen to, pass on to Donnie Two Scoops, because that's how it's done now. No collusion. No puppet. You're the puppet. Well, because of this news, Donald Trump's on a rant this morning about, pulling credentials from news organizations because they're all fake. Anybody who reports negative reportage on Trump is fake. Well, I suppose if your name is Donnie Two Scoops, you're not going to take criticism very well, are you now? In spite of constitutional guarantees in the Constitution about a free press. I would think the mere issuance of credentials is a clamp on a free press, but, that's me. I'm a romantic, and, I like things pure. But purity only exists in the imagination now, doesn't it? Oh, that guy Blankenship, the killer coal mine owner, lost. He lost his bid to be the Republican candidate to kill coal miners in West Virginia. So, and people voted for him. In fact, one guy says, "I want an honest crook." And Don Blankenship is my honest crook. He's his Huckleberry. And Don Blankenship is more Trumpier than Trump. And that's supposed to be a referendum, I guess. Though Trump did come out and say, don't vote for that guy. And now Trump can also say that he caused people not to vote for Blankenship. I guess that's one way of putting it. There's an old adage in coal mining country that you get killed in the coal mine by the coal mine owner you got. You don't really get killed in the coal mine by the coal mine owner that you want. And Don Blankenship was trying to be that coal mine owner that kills people, and people would want him, and apparently they want a different coal mine owner to kill them in West Virginia. A White House official admits that Trump killed the Iran deal just so he could watch experts freaking out on CNN. I don't think that's the only reason. He wanted to stick it to the black guy. Whatever the black guy did and wanted, we have to overturn. There's a stench in here. It smells like black. And we must cleanse it, sanitize it, antiseptic now. And because he's obsessed with this. He has to, like when he locks a door, he has to lock and unlock each of the locks. And there's 4 or 5 of them on the door. He has to lock and lock those locks 4 or 5 times themselves, each one, until he feels safe and secure. And he just doesn't feel safe and secure unless, he's got like a woman running the CIA who probably in Trump's mind wears a dominatrix outfit and tortures people. More torture. Because apparently he likes that, I guess. The Iranian parliament burned the U.S. flag and chanted death to America after Trump killed the nuclear deal, and why wouldn't they? gladly, I got to say, Macron, Theresa May, and Merkel. Wow, that's the 3 M's when you think about it. Assured Iran that the deal's still in place. Whatever this loony, mobbed up mobster is doing over there in America, don't worry about it. We got you. Trump cannot even explain what it is that the Iranian nuclear deal does that he's undone. And you know what he's going to do? He's going to impose the same sanctions in the exact same scenario and then say that I did it and Obama is the reason that everything in the world is falling apart because black people are who we get to kick, along with brown people because they're fellow travelers too. Oh boy. What does the Republican Party have left to be able to draw from to run candidates in this new Trump world? Well, we'll get into that with the stories that we will be attending to today. And what are they? Well, they are. An Oregon constitutional sheriff compared the state's proposed AR-15 ban to Nazi Germany and Stalin's Russia, when it's really more like Wyatt Earp's Dodge City, not Tombstone. No, it's more like Dodge City. Okay. The GOP frontrunner challenging Dianne Feinstein for her California seat this fall. This is the kind of candidates the GOP gets to run, and they're leading. Well, this guy in California hates Jews, loves Hitler, and wants to destroy America. Well, since it looks like with these payments to Cohen from this Russian oligarch and AT&T and Novartis, it looks like the whole of the GOP is complicit in this fraud and influence. So this guy wanting to destroy America is right up the Republicans' alley. That's why they get to field these people, I guess. Speaking of which, Senate investigators say previously concealed information reveals Russian hackers could have altered or deleted voter registration data before the 2016 election. Told you. Yep, very small number, probably in 3 states, about 70,000. Yeah, electoral college. Yeah, you win how you win. After the break, we move to the chef's table where minutes after breaking the Iran deal, Trump issued a bizarre threat against Germany. Who else hates Germany? Yeah, Vlad. Wow. Is it a coincidence? I don't know. And one scientist has spent over 30 years trying to get under Mars' skin, which is dangerous because Mars is the god of war. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish there is the chat room link. Look for it. It's right there. And Kelly Lincoln, our roaring girl, does monitor that, and we'll get back to you if she's not there in real time, which she sometimes is. But we all have real lives. You know that. And to the leftish of our chat room link, at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, are the contribute donate buttons, and thank you for your generosity. We are still dealing with the migration issue from the old accounts to a new account, and we'll keep you apprised of how that's working. But Yeah, it's sitting there, and we'll get that transferred. And if we have to make any entreaty for you guys to start over with us, we may have to do that. I don't know. We keeping our fingers crossed. And so thank you indeed for your generosity. We are unable to do this without you. Do follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that platform, and I think that he and Kelly will take care of the Facebook page if you want to go there. And do follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I also post links and show notes for each day's show I post that on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime. So I'm on Daily Co's as Justice Putnam. Or, do the Justice Department. It's different than the Department of Justice. In fact, I really need to start collecting royalties every time they refer to the Department of Justice as the Justice Department, because I have that domain. Okay? Forward thinking, as they say. All right. I know. Oh, there's one other thing. Yes. Podcasts for West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy can be had by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIns, iTunes, etc. Okay. Let's see here. Let's get on to this constitutional sheriff. We have quite a few of them in Oregon. Maybe the more rural counties will have these sheriffs, but they're out there, and makes you wonder. They have the abridged copy of the Constitution always in their front pocket. You ask to see it, and you go, wow, this isn't really the whole Constitution. What are you getting at? They want to be the sheriff of Nottingham, which right there tells you all you need to know about an abuse of power and overreach. This is out of Raw Story by Martin Sismer. A sheriff in rural Oregon has reacted angrily to a proposed statewide ban on assault rifles. A ban on owning weapons that have fixed magazine holding more than 10 rounds of ammunition appears headed for the November ballot. As a referendum drive is currently gathering signatures, the state votes by mail and has elected only one Republican to statewide office in the last generation. Okay, well, sometimes that's what you got to do. Eastern Oregon, where the Bundy standoff happened, is much more conservative. Yes, it is. Sheriff Ken Matlock, the top lawman in lightly populated Morrow County, has come out hard against the proposed ban. Matlock is an extremist conservative and a rabid anti-immigrant activist who has aligned himself with Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio. What is it about these guys? They like pink underwear. They like to see men running around in pink underwear. Weird. Also, the anti-immigrant activism in Oregon doesn't just extend to, brown people from other countries, but really anybody coming from California too. They really don't like people in California and certain parts of Oregon. In fact, it's kind of a joke in Oregon about, Californians coming to Oregon and moving here. Mostly by Californians who have moved to Oregon, oddly. Well, as first reported by Raw Story over the weekend, Matlock posted a rant to Facebook comparing this assault weapon ban to Nazi Germany and Stalin's Russia. Instead of the rule prohibiting people from owning high-capacity assault rifles, Matlock suggests being less like those totalitarian regimes by punishing people who have an inkling that something bad is going to happen, but fail to report it to authorities. He wants to punish people for not being good Samaritans. Family, everybody saw the trick. Everybody saw it. No one said anything. Well, wait a second, bud. What's your name again? Ken Matlock. Let me tell you something, Ken. There have been many times when people have reported odd goings-on the amassing of weaponry and ammunition. And it's always just shrugged off by the likes of you as saying, oh, well, they have a God-given right to do this. And then when they go out and have their express their God-given right to do this, and they use a killing machine, a human killing machine, or machines, in which to kill people, you want to blame the people that didn't warn others enough? Isn't that what bullies do? Bullies always say, well, it's your fault for letting me hurt you. Let me tell you something else, Ken. I thought you were the sheriff in town. Wyatt Earp imposed gun restrictions. He confiscated everybody's guns at the town limits, and they got them back when they left town. Thank you. No more shooting up the town with these guns. We can't stop them from shooting up the town, but we can stop them from using the tools in which they shoot up the town. Too bad. It ain't Nazi Germany, and it ain't Stalin's Russia. It's Wyatt Earp's Dodge City, not Tombstone. There's a little bit of an anomaly there, okay? Granted, let's be clear. Okay? Have we corralled ourselves now in this? Well, surprisingly here, Matlick has an education degree from the local college, which says a lot about the education you get at the local college. And he also wrote that the ban is likely unconstitutional despite the fact that other jurisdictions have similar laws which have been upheld by the courts. But he knows because he's a sheriff, and sheriffs have some sort of innate knowledge of the Constitution, God-given. They're imbued with it. They don't even need to study. They just know. I fully support law-abiding citizens who want to protect themselves and their families with firearms, Matlick wrote. I support any qualified citizen who wishes to have a concealed handgun license. I do not fear armed, honest, law-abiding citizens. I fear criminals who do not obey the law and will not comply with more new gun laws. Now, Monroe County has, granted, very little crime, but when you take into this consideration here, I do not fear armed, honest, law-abiding citizens. I do not fear armed, honest, law-abiding citizens. And he teaches his crew that. So what happened in October? One of Matlick's deputies shot a man in the head after the deputy creeped up on the guy when he was sleeping in his truck. And the armed, honest, law-abiding citizen woke up startled. Law-abiding. Cop saw the gun, shot him in the head. In that instance, I guess the fear was not of a law-abiding citizen who was armed, but somebody not following the laws to allow more people to have more guns. That's the kind of education you get at the local college, apparently, in Eastern Oregon. Offering here the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Smothered Benedict Wednesdays is an article by Casey Michael, or Michelle, out of Think Progress. I'm going to have to figure this one out. Okay, Casey Michael out of Think Progress has an article about this guy, Patrick Little, who's running as the Republican candidate. One of many, by the way. I mean, it's still a primary. But he's the front runner to run against Dianne Feinstein in the fall. But he wants to deport Jewish people from the U.S., says Adolf Hitler is the second coming of Christ, and has called for the Balkanization of America. And he's also leading in a recent poll, the leading contender challenging Dianne Feinstein for her seat. Now, this was by Survey USA, and there's a little chance that this guy's going to keep the same numbers as, the primary soon here, and I don't know. His supporters included nearly a quarter of Californians over the age of 50 and nearly half of the state's Republicans because, a lot of them see White Russia as, the promised land. It's the last bastion of whiteness. And they're going to go there and they're going to find out that it's a cookbook. Well, out of nowhere and with almost no name recognition, and I was trying to find out, this guy's got to come from Orange County somewhere. But I haven't been able to find out, and this article here doesn't say what district he's in. But with no name recognition and out of nowhere, he became the latest extremist to attach his name to the Republican Party. And swiftly became the likeliest candidate to take his rank anti-Semitism, genocide, denial, and white supremacy to Congress, as the Republicans want it to be. Well, the Republican Party did kick him out of their convention, and he was literally dragged out kicking and screaming and spitting, and called the Republican Party Zionist stooges, because that's what happens, they're fake news. And he is a Trump supporter, of course. He attended last year's Unite the Right rally, so, get complicit in killing liberals. And he was there. So we'll see. I don't think that this guy has a chance in hell. But there are a lot of people in California that, don't mind, apparently, living in hell. From Alternet has this offering, finishing up here in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Previously concealed information shows just how vulnerable the U.S. election system is. The Senate Intelligence Committee, the Senate, they're still running a true investigation here, revealed yesterday the Russian hackers who have known to have penetrated at the electronic election systems of at least 18 states were in a position to alter or delete voter registration data ahead of the 2016 election, at least in some states. The report released last night does not say which states were vulnerable to this kind of manipulation. I'm thinking of 3 myself. It only states that it occurred in a small number of states, like maybe 3. And while it says that the hackers were in a position to carry out this tampering, it does not say if there's evidence that any registration files were altered. It goes on to note that hackers did not appear to be in a position to manipulate individual votes or aggregate vote totals. While it's certainly a good thing that the hackers weren't unable to change vote tallies, it's a small comfort because I actually think that means that they did. But that's just me. To alter an election result, removing names from voter registration files would be sufficient if your method was well targeted, like in 3 states. As long as you can reliably predict how a certain group of people will vote, then removing them from the voter rolls would have the same effect as altering the vote tallies after the fact. Trump and his allies have repeatedly downplayed the effect of Russian meddling in the 2016 election because, they're taking big-time money, and I think most of the Republican Party is in cahoots with the money angle, so they're not going to say anything about it. They're being helped. So, and it's frequently cited the fact there's no evidence final vote tallies were altered. And they rarely address other ways in which the final election result may have been duplicitously affected, like, gerrymandering for decades since Reagan. I mean, in the hyper gerrymandering that we see. It remains unclear to what extent upcoming U.S. elections will be protected from these types of attacks or other types of attacks. Trump is uninterested in countering Russian aggression or investigating the meddling. And it's likely the country will be less prepared to protect itself. Well, when asked, the State Department and intelligence department community say, well, we're not doing anything to protect our voting systems from Russian hacking. Damn. All right, let's get to our break, and we'll come back and we'll go through weather from around the world, and we'll finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Steve Mirsky.
Absolutely spectacular mission. And it's not a rover, it's a lander. It's designed to land and deploy several instruments.
Jim Green, NASA's new chief scientist, talking about the InSight mission to Mars. InSight launched from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California the morning of May 5th. He spoke with Scientific American space editor Lee Billings, who recorded their conversation.
One instrument will be set on the surface, and it will, measure Mars quakes. Now, why are Mars quakes important? Well, Mars quakes because we can get the acoustic signals and see how they are displayed in time. We can tease out the size of the core, even if it's liquid or not, the size of the mantle and the crust, and compare those with the big terrestrial planet, Earth, that we know a lot about its interior. And this will really help us understand how terrestrial planets are made.
Green was NASA's Planetary Science Division Director since 2006, before taking on his current assignment just last week. Back to the InSight mission.
But in general, it also has a human exploration part to it. For instance, we know Mars is quaking. We have seen with Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter from orbit avalanches. And so something is going on, and it's shaking the planet. And this is really exciting because if humans go to Mars in our lifetime, which I anticipate they will, they're going to need to build structures. Those structures have got to be able to understand the environment and be safe. And so they're going to have to withstand whatever Marsquake environment is actually there. We will know what that is. We will know if it's difficult or whether it's relatively easy, but we'll be able to accommodate it no matter what. Now, another experiment is a heat probe. This also sits on the surface and it pounds into the ground about 5 meters a set of thermistors that will measure the heat, and that will tell us how Mars is cooling off. All our planets are built, 4.5 billion years ago. They're still cooling off from their initial accretion. And so we're going to see, well, is like Earth's geothermal ability, does Mars have an ability to, as it cools off, heat habitats for human exploration? Or is it primarily very cool in the core, and one will know if it's partially liquid or not? Is that completely solid now? And all that will be put together in our models of the interior of Mars. And as I said, it will also have some profound effects on what we do with human explorations next.
If all goes well, InSight will land on Mars on November 26th. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Steve Mirsky.
With this latest reckless decision, the EPA did not just jeopardize our planet and our health, they also broke the law.
17 states sue Trump administration over rollback of car emissions standards.
This is a worst-case scenario for government ethics. I feel like I want my head to explode right now.
More new ethics problems for EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt. Pakistan sets all-time world heat record for the month of April. Plus, Russia launches the world's first floating nuclear power plant.
Fantastic. What could possibly go wrong? All of those stories and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
We aren't killing our planet. Let us face it. There is no planet B.
Yes, there is. It's called Mars, and Elon Musk is going to fly us there, and we will all be eating Matt Damon's poop potatoes. Okay?
This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, Scott Pruitt used to brag about the fact that he had sued the EPA 14 different times. Well, I guess what comes around goes around.
Yes, it certainly does. A coalition of 17 states and the District of Columbia filed suit against the Trump Environmental Protection Agency on Tuesday, arguing that the administration's attempt to weaken Obama-era fuel economy and emissions standards for cars and trucks is against the law. The states, led by California, allege the rollback is arbitrary and unsupported by evidence and would increase healthcare costs and climate change impacts. In a press conference, California's Democratic Governor Jerry Brown was characteristically blunt.
He's breaking the law. He's flouting the Clean Air Act and the legitimate needs and well-being of the American people. This is about health. It's about life and death. Pruitt and I suppose his boss, Mr. Trump, they want people to buy more gas, create more pollution. Hard to believe, but that's the fact.
The 17 states represent 44% of U.S. car sales. Governor Brown and some auto industry analysts warn that weakening the standards could hamstring the U.S. auto industry because the rest of the world is transitioning to cleaner cars and trucks.
Which means they're going to be able to sell a lot more cars, and the U.S. auto industry is going to be caught out again.
More troubles for EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt. 2 of his top aides resigned this week related to Pruitt's questionable spending and ethics. Now, new reports reveal that Pruitt's exorbitantly costly trip to Morocco last year was actually organized by a lobbyist who was then subsequently hired by Morocco to lobby the U.S. government.
Nice.
Former federal ethics chief Walter Schaub told CNN,
"It's inconceivable in any other administration that he'd still be in this position, particularly because the whole point of the trip seems to have been to promote natural gas industry interests, and it's really not clear what an EPA administrator has to do with that."
Well, it depends if that EPA administrator is Scott Pruitt and has been funded for years by the fossil fuel industry.
And now the Washington Post reports that a billionaire who advised Trump on deregulation has himself received a special exemption from regulation. The EPA this week quietly granted billionaire Carl Icahn a special financial hardship waiver worth millions of dollars that exempts an oil refinery he owns from renewable fuel blending regulations. Icahn was forced to step down as a Trump advisor last year amid corruption allegations that he was using his position to benefit his investments.
Billionaire Carl Icahn got a hardship waiver
for a profitable refinery.
Poor guy.
Meanwhile, the impacts of global warming caused by burning fossil fuels continue to accelerate. Pakistan on April 30th hit 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, if confirmed, that would be a new world record for the hottest April temperature ever reliably recorded on the entire planet.
Wow.
But some good news for breathers. New York City this week announced plans to electrify electrify their entire bus fleet by 2040. Even better news, Shenzhen, China announced it has already converted its entire fleet of 13,000 buses to electric, and they did it in just 3 years. In Hawaii, a bipartisan unanimous vote in the state legislature made Hawaii the first state in the nation to commit to 100% renewable electricity and a statewide net zero carbon emissions economy by 2045.
Nice.
And finally, Russia has launched the world's first floating nuclear power plant, and it's headed on a very slow barge to the Arctic, where it will begin operations sometime next year. It's part of a planned fleet of floating nuke plants that Greenpeace warns could cause Chernobyl on ice.
Not as nice. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find us, follow us, and share us worldwide on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. We'll be off for the next week, but we'll be back thereafter. Until then, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Ice, ice, baby. Ice, ice, baby.
All right, stop.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1854. That was the day wealthy populist and labor advocate Jacob Coxey was born. He grew up in Danville, Pennsylvania, and worked as a stationary engineer in an iron mill. Soon he moved to Ohio and opened a sand quarry. He entered politics and initially campaigned as a candidate for the Greenback Party. By the 1890s, he had thrown his lot in with the populists. When the Panic of 1893 hit, workers flooded the industrial Midwest in search of jobs. Cities across the country were overwhelmed with the newly unemployed begging on the streets. Coxey proposed a good works bill which demanded $500 million for federal jobs. He supported paper currency, public works projects, transportation for rural areas, and full employment. He decided to take his proposal directly to Congress by organizing a protest march on behalf of the unemployed. Hundreds joined him on his march from Ohio to Washington, D.C., forming Coxey's Army. They set off from Massillon, Ohio on Easter Sunday, 1894, supported by populists and organized labor. Estimates of marchers ranged into the tens of thousands. His army, however, was stopped along the way by court injunctions, preventing them from commandeering trains and seizing railway lines as they traveled. About 500 eventually reached Washington, D.C. As Coxey climbed the steps of the Capitol to demand the Good Jobs Bill, he and his army were met by police forces, which attacked the crowd and beat them back from the Capitol steps. Years later, his campaigning finally paid off, and he was elected mayor of Massillon. In 1944, he was invited back to the Capitol steps to deliver his Good Jobs Bill, which by that time had become official policy.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Governors and mayors insist that giving our tax dollars to corporations to lure them to move to our cities is good public policy because the corporations create jobs, those workers pay taxes, and voila, the corporate giveaway pays for itself. Really? No. Good Jobs First tracked the 386 incentive deals since 1976 that gave at least $50 million to a corporation. Then it tallied the number of jobs created. The average cost per job was $658,000 each. That's far more than cities and states can recover through sales, property, income, and all other taxes those job holders would pay in their lifetimes. The rosy job creation claims by deal makers also tend to be bogus, for they don't subtract the number of jobs lost as a result of these deals. Amazon, for example, has leaned on officials in every major metro area to subsidize its creation of a nationwide network of warehouses, data centers, and other facilities. In a 2016 report titled Amazon's Stranglehold, the Institute for Local Self-Reliance found that more than half of Amazon's facilities had been built with government subsidies. And Good Jobs First found that since 2005, Amazon has received more than $1 billion from taxpayers to build their private business. Each handout was made in the name of local workers. And yes, Amazon does employ thousands. But the subsidies enable the retail giant to undercut local unsubsidized competitors, driving them out of business and causing devastating job losses that greatly outnumber jobs gained. Indeed, while Amazon employs 146,000 people, it has eliminated some 295,000 jobs. This is Jim Hightower saying, check it out at ilsr.org/Amazon-Stranglehold.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. It is probably just an egg dish with hollandaise, but could be something a little bit more nuanced, because that's how we do it here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Oh, I wanted to mention thank you for comments on the podcast. I don't know how on Spreaker how to reply. It looks like it's just making another comment, which would be making a comment to myself. So rather than do that, I'll thank you on the air. So thank you for leaving comments. And if any of you out there feel like you want to rate on iTunes or any of the podcast platforms, do that. It'll just push the show up higher in the search engine. Who in their right mind would have named their show West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, knowing that W was way down the list of the alphabet? I could have had A1 West Coast Cookbook, but that was a little too obvious, don't you think? So, okay, well, rate it, and maybe it'll push it up in the search engine. We'll see. We'll see. All right. Let's begin with weather from around the world, and we always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America. It's currently 60 degrees, and we're going to be about the same as we were yesterday, 75, 77. Pretty nice. It got a little muggy. We did have a little rain squall that came through. It was very nice. I liked it. So yeah, it was a little bit muggy. Okay, well, humidity is 70%, so it's dropped precipitously since yesterday. And right now it's mostly cloudy with the winds out of the southeast at a negligible 1 mile per hour. Later on this morning, though, it will be shifting out of the west to 5 to 10 miles per hour, which is its usual May blustery winds that we like to have here. And then tonight, the winds will then again shift out, this time out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. No chance of rain today, small chance of rain tonight and tomorrow, though it looks like we will have showers about the middle of next week. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. We like rain. We like minerals falling from the sky in liquid form. The plants love it. At least they seem to. Speaking of which, grass pollen is pretty high. Pressure is holding steady at 30 inches. We're getting a little bit of high pressure moving in. Oh, air quality index is good at 10. That's not so bad, but UV index is very high at daytime UV 8. So take care if you're in our neck of the woods, and if you're registering that high wherever you are, do take care. All right, let's see here. Okay, visibility is 10 miles. And like I said, humidity is, that's relative humidity, but by the way. Relative humidity is at 70%. All right, weather from around the world is brought to you by People's Personal Weather Stations. They purchased, these people planted these personal purchase weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. The guy in London is currently experiencing 69 degrees and fair. Paris, France, oh my God, 74 and fair. I love Paris this time of year. The florals. It's just so lovely. I can't explain it. You have to go. Rome is 69 and partly cloudy. They continue to have wind and rain warnings. So take care if you're in Rome. Kiev is 77 and fair. Kabul is 72 and fair. Wedding parties hate it when it's, really nice and clear. They don't like it. And you'll know why, too. It's, usually when it's fair, it's usually a forecast of falling drone bombs. Hong Kong is 72 and cloudy. Tokyo is 55 and mostly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 60 degrees and fair. San Francisco, California is 54 degrees and mostly cloudy. And New York, is 69 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny in the spring in New York. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchase. These people planted these personal purchase weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. First offering here at the chef's table of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays, is an article by the great Oliver Willis out of Share Blue Media. Now, minutes after Trump broke the Iran deal, his administration issued quite a bizarre threat against one of our closest allies. What? Well, the Trump administration issued a public threat against the German government minutes after announcing the U.S. would withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. Recently sworn in U.S. Ambassador to Germany, Richard Grenell, made the threat in a tweet posted after Trump's announcement. Like it was planned. He said U.S. sanctions will target critical sectors of Iran's economy. German companies doing business in Iran should wind down operations immediately. Germany is, of course, a sovereign nation and has its own policies for contending with Iran. It is also one of our nation's closest allies. Yeah, the nation, but not an ally to Trump. Trump's closest ally is his boss. And we know who that is. And this is not the first time Trump has attacked Germany. In May of 2017, he labeled the German people very evil over trade policies. And during a meeting with Chancellor Angela Merkel 2 months earlier, he would not even shake her hand. But he can't wait to hug and kiss Vlad. UK Prime Minister Theresa May, French President Emmanuel Macron, and Merkel addressed the issues of Iran sanctions in a joint statement. Wow, May, Macron, and Merkel. That's the 3M company. I'll be here all week. Theresa May said Iran should continue to receive the sanctions relief it is entitled to whilst it remains in compliance with the terms of the deal. Now, May said that, but it was issued by all three leaders. The decision to withdraw from the deal while Iran has been certified to be in compliance is already isolating America, and that's a feature, not a bug. And Trump is helping to ensure that by openly ordering the German government around. That's going to wind up well. Don't be poking the hornet's nest. Please. The attitude Trump has embraced tells the world that America is not a rational or serious working partner on global issues. And as long as Trump is directing U.S. foreign policy, the decisions will be erratic and lack logic. Once again, during his presidency, America has separated itself from its most loyal and trustworthy allies. America under Trump is pushing for conditions that will likely lead to more war and international conflict. The post-war alliance, the Cold War, is under full assault from the Trump administration, and Germany has received one of the first blows.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
All right, finishing up here at the Chef's Table of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is an article out of the Agence France Presse. And, of course, they never name the correspondents there. They're just a bunch of anonymous worker bees working for the collective. And that's okay. Now, this story was actually presaged a bit by our Scientific American break. But this article gets into the principle involved. Philippe Lagnon has waited 3 decades to hear the heartbeat of Mars. And with a little luck and some help from NASA, the instrument he designed to take the red planet's pulse will land before the year's end and press a high-tech ear to its dusty surface. As principal investigator with the Seismic Experiment for Interior Structures, SEIS, says, a multi-sensor seismometer, Lagnon will have a front-row seat for the scheduled launch this Saturday from Vandenberg Air Force Base in Central California of NASA's InSight mission. But he's keeping the champagne corked 3 times in the past. Mars space missions featuring his ultra-sensitive seismometers have faltered, failed, or been scrapped. Lagnon's cherubic features are framed by a mop of shoulder-length auburn hair, a grizzled beard, and white sideburns. He has just turned 55 and has a weakness for Hawaiian shirts. It's almost sort of like putting knickknacks on your shelves. You reach a certain age, you start wearing Hawaiian shirts and putting knickknacks on every bare space on your shelves. Windowsills, too. Don't forget the windowsills! A researcher at the Institute of Earth Physics in Paris, or Paris, Lagnon has explored the dynamics of tsunamis and deciphered data from the 1970s Apollo missions. This planet was habitable 4 billion years ago, and I want to understand why. Bit by bit, it stopped being so, he said. Soon after completing his Ph.D. in 1989, the young scientist focused on designing a suite of seismometers used on Earth to detect and measure earthquakes that could probe deep beneath the Martian surface in search of answers. His first crack at securing passage to Mars for his instruments came in 1996, when France's National Center for Space Studies joined a Russian mission that included an orbiter and 2 landers. But 2 small seismometers on board never made it past Earth's atmosphere. The launch failed, and the mission was aborted. Lagnon got another shot at his goal 7 years later, working with U.S. engineer Bruce Bannert, who 15 years later would become the scientific director for InSight. He helped prepare instruments for the European Net Lander mission, which sought to set up a network of 4 small stations on the surface of Mars, including a seismometer. A launch date was set for 2005, but, they scrapped that mission, and Lagnon did say that was a bit of a letdown, to say the least. Well, here's wishing you luck, fellow, and let's hope that we can get under Mars' skin. You never know what we might find now, won't we? Okay, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but we'll be back here for Well, why not? Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. That sounds like a good meal for a special, doesn't it now? Okay, a little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. Stay tuned for that. Hey, and stay tuned to the rest of the day. Absolutely breaking news, and once again, I got to tell you what happened while I'm in this bubble. It'll be breaking, and we'll pick it up tomorrow, certainly, so stay tuned for that. And do stay tuned to Netroots Radio for the rest of the day, and we will visit with you tomorrow in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.